This week on Ancient Top 10, evidence of manned flight in the ancient world.
Of all the mysterious ancient artifacts in the world, these are the ones that really make you stop and pause to wonder. Did these ancient people know about aircraft?
Could there have been electricity thousands of years ago?
It is really difficult to imagine what it could have been if it wasn't some sort of device for making electricity.
Was there a power drill more advanced than anything today?
This core seems to have been drilled out of solid granite using a rapidly rotating drill.
And the world's first computer, 200 BC.
One of the greatest treasures of the ancient world.
Where will they be ranked on the only top 10 list, thousands of years in the making? The mysteries of the ancients are boundless. So much from ancient times will remain a secret forever. On this show, we have evidence of technology more advanced than today's. How can this be?
Some suggest that this is evidence for extraterrestrial communication in ancient times.
Fact or fiction? You decide. This week on Ancient Top 10, it's Ancient Mysteries. The most bewildering ancient mysteries, ranked according to how much they tell us about the secrets of the ancient world. And we start where else but in ancient Egypt. Astonishing evidence of ancient flight. Soaring in at number 10, the Saqqara bird.
It's a wooden carving of a bird, and at first glance, this Saqqara bird doesn't appear to be anything special. It's only when we examine it more closely that the real mystery is revealed.
Ancient Egypt, the greatest civilization of the ancient world. The oldest known pyramid in Egypt? Here at Saqqara, 20 miles south of Cairo. Over 100 years ago, an intriguing object was recovered from this site. It's a small carving made of sycamore wood and over 2,000 years old. Clearly, it's designed to look like a bird. Some experts believe that this bird is evidence the ancient Egyptians had knowledge of the principles behind gliding. Modern gliders date from the 19th century, but the idea of a glider is nothing new. Over 1,000 years ago, in 9th century Cordoba, southern Spain, one brave inventor, Abbas ibn Firnas, threw himself off of a tower in his own self-built gliding machine. Accounts say he glided a considerable distance, and he has gone down in history as the first man to fly. But could the Saqqara bird really be evidence of an ancient gliding machine?
It's just a bird, a carving of a bird. So what makes it so mysterious? Well, first we have to ask, why is it there?
The reason for items being placed in tombs is very practical. They're scale models of objects from real life, either to help the dead person in the afterlife or to help them get there, a means of transport.
A model of a giant bird? What use would that be? And there weren't any giant birds in Egypt anyways. All of the other models are of real, practical things. But an aircraft, now that would be useful.
The Egyptians believed the dead lived on in the skies. To get there, an aircraft would be ideal. Could the Saqqara bird be a scale model of an actual aircraft?
The ancient Egyptians had throwing sticks similar to boomerangs for hunting birds. It was a royal pastime. So given that they understood some basic principles of aerodynamics, could it be that the Saqqara bird, with its vertical tail fin to act as a stabilizer, was a kind of glider?
A vertical tail fin like this doesn't occur in nature. But if this bird was going to fly, it would also need a horizontal fin in the back, such as modern gliders have. Without this, it would plummet to the ground. It's because Ibn Firnas didn't have a horizontal tail fin that he couldn't control his descent. There are in fact marks on the Saqqara bird where exactly such a fin might have been. This would make it more stable than Ibn Firnas's machine, which was 1,000 years later. Thanks to modern technology, it's possible to test how aerodynamic a model of the bird would be with a horizontal fin added.
This is an amazing experiment. It will prove whether or not the ancient people had knowledge of flight. And if they did, the implications are staggering.
All the data can be fed into a computer and a flight simulator. Then the bird can be tested in the air.
The million-dollar question is if a scaled-up version of this carved bird would actually fly.
This high-tech analysis provides an unbelievable result.
Amazingly, modern scientific analysis shows that the Saqqara bird conforms to our understanding of aerodynamics.
It glides perfectly.
Modern plans for gliders, the technological know-how for gliders, didn't appear until the 19th century. And those ancient plans actually work better than some of the earlier versions of modern gliders.
Could the ancient Egyptians really have flown? It can't be proved. It's still up in the air.
But why have that capability and not use it?
If they could have, then they would be more advanced than we ever imagined. As amazing as an ancient glider would be, our next ancient mystery is even more illuminating. Possible evidence of ancient electricity. At number 9. The Dendera light.
It's the classic out-of-place artifact, which does look bizarrely similar to a big electric light bulb.
The Dendera Temple Complex, near Luxor. One of the best preserved in Egypt. And it's here, at the Temple of Hathor, that we find a set of mysterious carvings. They are 4,500 years old. Could some bright spark back then really have invented electricity? Amazingly, this image is evidence for some that they may have.
There's a wire connected to a socket at the bottom. There's a filament inside what looks like a giant electric bulb. And there's even a pillar with features resembling modern pylons.
The ancient Egyptians did have primitive glass, which could have been used to make the casing of a bulb.
Of course the ancient Egyptians didn't have electric lighting. But it can't be denied that the Dendera light does resemble a large light bulb.
Some experts believe that Dendera was not actually a temple, but that it served another purpose. Possibly as a scientific research lab of some kind, or even an ancient power station. It's generally thought that the ancient Egyptians lit their temples by burning torches. Surprisingly, there is little evidence of this.
Supporting this theory that the dendrolite is electrical is how there's supposedly very little smoke damage in ancient Egyptian tombs. So if they weren't using torches to light their tombs, what were they using?
Electricity in ancient Egypt. This may be a truly illuminating mystery. But there's more, even greater evidence of modern technology in the ancient world. We're back to flight, but this time, powered flight. It could even be evidence of spacecraft. At number 8, the mysterious Golden Plains of South America.
It looks like we have another airplane on our hands, only this time not a glider like the Saqqara bird. No, this is ultra modern. This looks like a supercharged aircraft.
These remarkable golden objects were found in an ancient tomb deep within the Colombian rainforest at the end of the 19th century. They were made by the Quimbaya people over 1,000 years ago. They look like small pieces of jewelry, made to commemorate a particular aircraft. But these golden planes are ancient.
This must be an accurate representation of something. But the question is, of what? The shape of the wings, to me, that says modern aircraft. But not just aircraft, it sort of screams space shuttle.
They do look like aircraft. Could they actually be models of something from the natural world? But like the Saqqara bird, it has a vertical tail fin.
No flying insect or bird even has vertical fins or wings attached to the bottom. This simply doesn't happen in nature. These are characteristics of an aircraft.
So did these ancient people in South America truly have the knowledge of powered flight? Groundbreaking scientific testing of a recreation may prove that these golden planes could actually fly. We've reached number 8. And we're in the jungles of South America, where these remarkable golden objects were found. They look like miniature space shuttles, but they were made over 1,000 years ago. Could they be models of alien spacecraft?
There are many people who believe that aliens visited Earth a long time ago. And when you think about it, it's just as likely that they would have visited South America, say 1,000 years ago, as it would be for them to visit us today.
We'll never know for sure if these models were influenced by something otherworldly. It will remain a mystery. But there is one practical test that can be made. One that will determine once and for all whether these planes could actually fly. In 1997, German aviation experts made a 16:1 scale model, painstakingly constructing it to mirror exactly a golden plane. And it flies, just like a modern plane. The aerodynamics are perfect.
Of all the mysterious ancient artifacts in the world, these golden planes are the ones that really make you stop and pause to wonder. Did these ancient people know about aircraft? I mean, you can't escape the feeling that in 3 dimensions, they look like modern aircraft.
But the mysteries of ancient aircraft don't end there. Coming in at number 7, an ancient mystery that may show even more compelling evidence for high-tech ancient flying machines. The extraordinary Abydos hieroglyphs. These mysterious hieroglyphs are on a temple wall in Central Egypt. They're from the 13th century BC, and some experts believe that they reveal more about the ancients than any other carving.
The Abydos hieroglyphs are probably the most famous Egyptian hieroglyphs in the world. There's one that looks like a helicopter. There's one right next to it that looks like a tank. And there's yet another one that looks like a modern fighter jet meets a flying saucer.
Helicopters, tanks, flying saucers. Now, what's really amazing about this is that these things aren't just in the same tomb, they're all next to each other, which is an incredible coincidence.
Now, one could be coincidence, but 3?
These hieroglyphs are over 3,000 years old. That's just ridiculous. How can that be?
The temple complex is dedicated to Osiris, the Egyptian god of the afterlife. Could these be craft designed to transport the dead to their place in the heavens? Some have even theorized that perhaps these are the craft of visiting aliens commemorated in stone. The stuff of science fiction, maybe. Or were these futuristic craft imagined by some brilliant engineer ahead of his time? An ancient Da Vinci.
It took another 3,000 years before someone thought of the idea of a helicopter, and and that was Leonardo da Vinci, and we consider him a genius. And of course, it was many hundreds of years later when we actually invented the helicopter. So where does this leave us? Were the artists at Abydos time travelers?
It all sounds rather far-fetched, and yet there the hieroglyphs are, for all to see.
The notion of flight in the ancient world is truly astonishing. But even more shocking is evidence of ancient electricity. And this time, it's not a carving, it's an actual artifact. At number 6, the Baghdad Battery.
Looking at this object, it is really difficult to imagine what it could have been if it wasn't some sort of device for making electricity.
This is a photograph of the Baghdad Battery. It's now lost. But back in the 1930s, it was in the National Museum of Iraq, and it's been the cause of huge controversy ever since. It was a terracotta pot, dating from around 2,000 years ago. And inside was a cylinder made of a rolled copper sheet, with an iron rod precisely held in place in the middle of it. Tests on the interior of the jar have provided a clue as to what it may have been used for.
Looking inside the Baghdad battery, we can see that it contained some sort of acidic solution, perhaps lemon juice, wine, or vinegar. Now, this easily could have been used to pass an electrical current from the iron to the copper.
If it wasn't an ancient object, it would be obvious what it is: a battery.
I mean, just look at it. All its components fit so precisely together. So if this is true, I mean, once again, the implications are astounding.
Would a model of the battery actually work? How would ancient people put this power to use? We're at number 6, and it's the Baghdad Battery found in the desert of Iraq. This is a replica of the battery. With a copper tube, a steel or iron rod, and vinegar as an electrolyte solution, we can put the mystery surrounding this object to the test. Incredibly, electricity is produced, about 1 volt. This is astonishing. But if it was a battery, the mystery is what it would have been used for.
Now, even though the Baghdad batteries weren't powerful enough to produce electric lighting, experiments with replicas of them connected up have found that they could produce enough current to electroplate small objects.
Electroplating is when an electric current is passed through a liquid solution, like this gold solution, making its metal atoms deposit themselves on something acting as an electrode. By electroplating, a piece of jewelry or a coin could be coated with gold or silver.
Imagine that. How incredible would it be for someone in ancient times to be able to electroplate metals? If this is a battery, then the biggest question of all is, where did that knowledge come from? You know, this is evidence for many that there was a great ancient civilization, perhaps many of them whose knowledge we have now forgotten.
Electricity in the ancient world, even the concept, sounds ridiculous. You would have thought we'd have had some sort of a written record of it. Yet the Baghdad battery exists.
Technology thousands of years ahead of its time. If true, the implications are beyond belief. But for our next mystery, the evidence is rock solid. It's there for us all to see. Coming in at number 5, impossible engineering from the ancient Roman Empire. The Baalbek Blocks. Baalbek, Lebanon. The Temple of Jupiter here was the largest temple in the whole of the Roman Empire, standing at 300 feet high and completed about 60 AD. It covers the same area as nearly 9 football fields. It's intimidating and imposing. And that's just how it was meant to be.
Baalbek is a massive temple, and the Romans built places like this in part to show the locals what they could do. Not only did they want to prove that they had mastery over the natural world, they also wanted to intimidate their enemies. It's a demonstration of absolute power.
But the most incredible thing about this temple isn't its overall size. It's these 3 massive blocks of stone at the base of the temple. Each one is 12 feet high and 65 feet long. That's bigger than the biggest Egyptian obelisk. Amazingly, these 3 stone blocks are the largest building blocks ever used by any human beings anywhere in the world, weighing in at around 800 tons each.
And they are lined up absolutely perfectly. Now, we know that the Romans had technology which allowed them to raise 100 tons or so. So how on earth did these things get up there? They're one of those ancient mysteries that at the moment are just leaving us with a great big question mark.
There are no marks on the stone to give us any clue as to how they were moved. But we do know that they came from a quarry nearby, hacked out of the hillside in single giant pieces. Because there is one left in place. Today, to lift anything so heavy, we would use a mega crane like this. It's the Liebherr 11200, one of the most advanced, most powerful cranes around. But the Romans had nothing like this. Their cranes relied on muscle power. They were super advanced for their time, and this example, called the Polyspastos, could lift 6 tons.
This crane allowed each person using it to shift 60 times as much as they would otherwise.
With these cranes, the Romans could build enormous structures, such as 6-story apartment buildings, huge temples, and the Colosseum. But they were built using small blocks. These blocks at Baalbek were 800 tons. And even once lifted, somehow they would need transporting.
We know that the ancients used barges to float huge stones down to certain building sites. But Baalbek is nowhere near a river. So we might have some good guesses, but to be honest, we don't really know how they moved those huge stones. It is, and will probably forever remain, a mystery.
Why use such big blocks in the first place? Nobody knows. The answer is lost to history. Flying high at number 10 was the intriguing Saqqara bird. Number 9 was the light bulb carving at the Dendera Temple. Number 8, the enigmatic Golden Plains of South America. At number 7, the mysterious hieroglyphs at Abydos. Number 6, the shocking Baghdad Battery. And number 5 was the mystery of the massive stones at Baalbek. Next in our countdown is for some the most convincing evidence yet of extraterrestrials. At number 4, the Nazca Lines.
The Nazca Lines are a mystery that make the complete works of Agatha Christie look like the puzzle on the back of a cereal box.
These mysterious lines and shapes are in the desert in southern Peru. A giant hummingbird. A spider. Mysterious diagrams, shapes, and straight lines.
The Nazca Lines are astonishing, intricate geometrical designs and mathematical figures. I mean, the longest one is 1,000 feet. That's over 3 football fields.
These mysterious lines are between 4 and 12 inches deep. They're made just by pushing away the surface stones and earth and exposing the lighter ground underneath. And because the area is so dry and windless, they've lasted. Some of these lines date back to 500 BC.
There are over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric patterns, and over 70 animal and plant figures, over an incredible 200 square miles.
From the ground, they're pretty much invisible. But looking down from the sky, the Nazca lines come to life. It's absolutely incredible to imagine these ancient people laying out these patterns that they can't even see from the ground. How they did it is a mystery.
But as big a mystery as how they did it is why they did it.
There are a lot of theories about the Nazca lines. One of the central groups of theories has to do with the possibility that they can be studied using astronomy, so that these things might be calendars, or they might represent constellations, or be mapping the movement of the sun. Another theory that I happen to agree with is that these animals represented by the Nazca lines were actually parts of ritual circuits that you could actually walk, like in a procession, through the actual body and being of these creatures, as if you were experiencing the divine essence viscerally. I think that overall we have to conclude that the Nazca lines are still a great mystery.
And then there's this. He's known as the Spaceman. Is he a depiction of an extraterrestrial waving to us? Or is he a human waving hello or goodbye to something in the heavens?
There are many who believe that the lines are commemorative. That is, they represent a past visit of extraterrestrials, and it's a message to them to say, hey, we're still here, come back.
The Nazca lines have become world famous with a whole host of mysteries to explain what they mean, from rituals to produce more rain in the desert to messages for alien visitors coming down from outer space. One thing is certain, though, this is a mystery that will remain.
But next in our countdown, evidence of something seemingly impossible. Ancient technology way more advanced than even our own. At number 3. It's Core 7.
It's a bit of rubble, but it might just be the most mysterious bit of rubble in all of history.
This strange 4,500-year-old piece of rock, known as Core 7, is ancient Egyptian. It was found near the Great Pyramids at the end of the 19th century by this man, the British archaeologist, Flinders Petrie. It's kept here in London in the Petrie Museum. It's an exact cylinder and has strange lines scored into it, which are perfectly spaced. In fact, it's one continuous line, like the grooves of a record. What is it? It's the core that would be thrown away when a hole is drilled. In this case, the hole of a door pivot. But this rock is granite. How could the ancient Egyptians drill into solid granite?
The strongest metal tools the Egyptians had were copper. And copper is quite soft, so it's mind-boggling to think that that is what they used to penetrate granite. The only material really strong enough to penetrate granite, well, that's diamond. And if the ancient Egyptians had diamond cutting technology, well, then history would have to be rewritten.
The shape of the groove is further evidence of impossibly advanced technology.
It's the grooves in Petrie's Core 7 that are the real mystery. As far as we know, the ancient Egyptians only had bow drills, which moved back and forth.
This is a reconstruction of an ancient Egyptian bow drill. It makes a very distinctive back and forth line as it drills. One continuous line, such as that of Core 7, is the mark of a modern power drill.
This core seems to have been drilled out of solid granite using a rapidly rotating drill.
We've reached number 3. And it's a remarkable piece of granite from ancient Egypt, known as Core 7. Incredibly, the perfect line around the cylinder appears to be the line made by a super advanced power drill. A modern diamond-tipped machine like this, powered by electricity, makes a core just like the ancient Egyptian one. This machine turns at 1,600 revolutions per minute. How on earth could the Egyptians drill like this? Nobody knows. It's clearly impossible. And yet, they did it. The evidence is carved in stone. But even this isn't the end of our mystery. From looking at the space between each revolution, it's possible to work out the force of the drill. The wider the space between the groove, the greater the force.
Amazingly, research shows that the core was made by a drilling process with greater strength than a modern power drill. What does this tell us? There are no tools of that caliber that we know of. Is this evidence for an even far greater civilization that had those tools that we have no historical record of?
It remains an unexplained mystery, and it's one of the greatest. But next in our countdown of incredible ancient mysteries is one of the most immense, extraordinary discoveries of all time. At number 2, it's an entire army. The Terracotta Army.
This was one of the most amazing archaeological finds ever.
In the 1970s, Chinese farmers were digging a well, and they stumbled across these giant pits. The biggest was 750 feet long and filled with these amazing figures. They became known as the Terracotta Army, and more just kept coming.
Terracotta figures, 2,000 years old, and not a few, thousands of them. And 520 horses, 130 chariots, musicians, acrobats. Each one is unique. Every single one is different. It's as if they were sculpted from real people. It's as if you were there 2,000 years ago. It's absolutely eerie.
8,000 individually sculpted pieces. What were they, and why were they created? A clue is in the location. It was inside the huge mausoleum complex built for the Emperor Qin, the first emperor of China. Spread over 56 square miles, it took more than 720,000 people 37 years to construct it. The tomb itself lies within one of the largest burial mounds in the world. It remains unexcavated. It is thought to be booby-trapped to stop anyone breaking in. And it is said to be surrounded by a lake of mercury. But why was this army of clay buried with this great emperor? For the answer, we have to look to his lifetime. Qin was responsible for the deaths of thousands.
The one problem with being a violent tyrant who comes to power by slaying everybody who stands in your way is you make a few enemies. When you're alive, it's not a problem. You've got bodyguards. You can keep them out of the way. But when you're dead, they're waiting for you in the afterlife, and they carry a serious grudge.
8,000 soldiers, chariots, and horses, all there for one purpose: to protect him in the afterlife.
As well as being protected, Emperor Qin wanted to hold on to power. He meant to rule forever. But the mystery doesn't stop there.
After his death, Qin's entire court was buried with him. Hundreds of slaves, servants, concubines, wives, musicians, even his favorite horse and chariot, buried alive.
So wouldn't the obvious thing be to bury his elite troops alive? In a way, the mystery is why they are made of clay, rather than being the skeletons of real troops. Perhaps forcing the living troops into the pits was a step too far, even for the mighty Qin. And it gives us one of the greatest archaeological finds of all time. At number 10 was the high-flying Saqqara bird. At number 9, shining a light on the secrets of ancient Egypt, the Dendera Light. Number 8 was the mysterious Golden Plains of South America. And at number 7, the intriguing hieroglyphs at Abydos. At number 6, the Baghdad Battery. And at number 5 was the mystery of the massive stones at Baalbek. In at number 4, the famous Nazca Lines of Peru. Number 3 was the mysterious piece of granite known as Core 7. Our number 2, the unique, enigmatic Terracotta Army. Clearly, there was more to the ancients than is found in recorded history. But now we've reached the top of our countdown and prepare to be astounded. At number 1, the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient computer.
The most incredible and mysterious device, one of the greatest treasures of the ancient world.
The story begins just over 100 years ago, near the Greek island of Antikythera.
A group of Greek sponge divers were underwater looking for sponges, when actually what they stumbled across was a shipwreck full of treasures.
There were beautiful statues and all kinds of precious artifacts. And then there was this. A corroded lump of bronze. What could it be?
It was taken back to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, and there, one of the bronzes broke open to show gear wheels and inscriptions. Now, gear wheels were not known from the classical era, so this was something quite extraordinary.
What was this mysterious, seemingly out-of-time artifact? Debate has raged in the scientific community since its discovery. But it was only when it was radiographed in the 1970s that the total number of gears could be seen, and its complexity was revealed.
When it was built, it undoubtedly had more, maybe 45 gear wheels. And then it wasn't until 2005-2006, the application of 3D X-ray computed tomography, a sort of body scanner, to look at the structure of the thing, allowed us to work out what mechanism was really inside and just how technologically sophisticated that was.
This is a reconstruction of what the highly advanced mechanism may have looked like. But what was it for?
On the front of the Antikythera mechanism was a representation of the universe, solar system, with the Earth in the center, and around it went the moon, the sun, and the planets that they knew about at that time. On the back of the mechanism, there was a spiral at the top that was a cycle of the moon, 235 months over 19 years, and at the bottom, a dial which allowed you to predict whether it was likely there would be an eclipse of the sun or the moon. A sort of wonderful encapsulation of what they knew about astronomy at that time.
The Antikythera mechanism predicted and modeled aspects of the known sky. In a very real sense, it was a handheld model of the Greek universe.
The Antikythera mechanism allowed you to input data and get a result. So you'd find a date, and then it would show you where the sun, the moon, and the stars would be in the sky on that date.
So what we've got here is a computing calendar. Genius.
Input data, get a result. A computer. In fact, the technology is remarkably similar to what is traditionally thought of as the first computer, invented by Charles Babbage in the 19th century. Imagine the knowledge and skill needed to create such a thing thousands of years ago. Where did that knowledge come from? That is the biggest mystery of all.
This mind-blowing mechanism represents not just a phenomenal technical achievement, but the culmination of research reaching back who knows how many centuries.
The mechanical sophistication of the Antikythera mechanism reminds us that the Greeks were just as intelligent as we are. The difference is the much greater knowledge base we have these days. And what's changing is our view of their world.
The Antikythera mechanism is our #1, as it reveals the ancients were far more advanced than we ever previously thought. We still don't know who made it or why. It's our ultimate mystery.
Without the Antikythera mechanism, it would be difficult to realize how sophisticated the design technology had become. And it makes you wonder what else we're missing or misinterpreting in the ancient world.
This remarkable object tells us more than any other discovery that there is so much about the ancients that we don't know. There are mysteries so deep that it seems they'll never be solved. Super advanced technology thousands of years ago. One thing we can be sure of, the ancient world will continue to surprise and astonish us. It will always be a world of the most extraordinary secrets and mysteries.